This content is produced by PASS, the CSLB, an independent audio-first study companion for busy California B General candidates. I build these lessons from official CSLB study guide topics and reputable source-backed California materials, so you can study on the go. This is exam prep reinforcement, not legal, professional, engineering, or job-specific advice. Exam content is set by PSI and the CSLB and may change, so always verify current requirements against official CSLB materials. No exam outcome is guaranteed. Now let's get into it. Hauling debris away from a job does not prove that the material was diverted. That is the central distinction I want you to remember. A clean site shows that material left. Compliance records show what the material was, where it went, how it was measured, and whether the required amount was recycled or salvaged for reuse. That difference changes the supervisor's job. The work is not finished when the truck pulls through the gate. The supervisor needs a traceable chain from the waste plan to the container, from the container to the receiving facility, and from the facility back to the project file. If one link disappears, the crew may have handled the material correctly, but the contractor can still have trouble proving it. This is a testable concept based on the CSLB study guide because it combines code compliance, estimating, coordination, inspection, readiness, and environmental safety. I'm going to keep the lesson at the general B level. I am not turning it into a specialty waste course, and I am not treating a state minimum as the final answer in every city or county. The statewide starting point is a minimum diversion rate of 65% for non-hazardous construction and demolition waste on qualifying projects. Diversion means recycling the material or salvaging it for reuse instead of disposing of it in a landfill. An old 50% figure is not the current baseline in the source material for this lesson. The words qualifying projects matter. The requirement does not mean that every pile from every permit is handled under one identical provision. Project type, new construction, addition or alteration scope, permit valuation, and the adopted requirements of the enforcing agency all affect the exact path. Before pricing the work, I would verify which waste provisions apply to the permitted scope. I also want you to treat 65% as a state floor, not a promise that 65% is enough everywhere. CALGreen allows a local jurisdiction to enforce a more stringent waste ordinance. A city or county may require a higher diversion rate or the use of a particular franchised hauler. When that local requirement is more stringent, the contractor follows the local requirement. The field consequence is straightforward. If an estimate assumes the state minimum but the city requires a higher rate, different sorting, or a particular hauler, the waste budget and site plan may already be wrong before demolition starts. A quick jurisdiction check during pre-construction is cheaper than trying to rebuild the paper trail at closeout. Not every material belongs in the same calculation. I separate the job into distinct waste streams before I decide how to track anything. The first table separates three categories that contractors commonly blur together. The standard construction and demolition stream carries the minimum 65% diversion baseline on qualifying work. Land clearing material has a separate rule. Universal waste also has separate handling and verification requirements on covered, non-residential work. For the standard stream, think about ordinary non-hazardous construction and demolition material. The contractor needs an accepted compliance pathway and records that show the required diversion. A stricter local ordinance can raise the requirement. For land clearing under the applicable non-residential provision, trees, stumps, rocks, associated vegetation, and soils generated primarily from land clearing must be reused or recycled at 100%. The stated exception concerns soil or vegetation contaminated by disease or pest infestation. This material is tracked separately from the ordinary construction and demolition calculation. That separation prevents a major accounting mistake. A project cannot use a large quantity of clean excavated soil to make weak recycling performance for drywall, lumber, and other building debris look better. The land clearing stream has its own requirement and does not become a convenient offset inside the standard diversion percentage. Universal waste is another separate lane. For covered non-residential additions of at least 1,000 square feet and alterations with a permit valuation of at least $200,000, The construction documents identify prohibited universal waste materials, and the contractor verifies their diversion. The report identifies examples such as batteries, electronic waste, lamps, cathode ray tubes, and aerosol cans. I would never let those materials disappear into a general mixed debris bin merely because the overall project appears to be recycling enough material. The percentage for ordinary debris does not erase the separate handling obligation for a regulated waste stream. Once the streams are identified, the contractor needs an accepted way to demonstrate compliance. The source material provides 3 basic pathways. The second table compares those pathways side by side. They are a waste management plan, use of a waste management company, approved by the enforcing agency, or the waste stream reduction alternative. The waste management plan is the most direct project-controlled path. It identifies the materials expected to be diverted, whether the crew will separate them at the source or place them together for off-site sorting, the receiving facilities, and whether quantities will be calculated by weight or by volume. That last choice matters. The project uses one measurement basis consistently. It does not count concrete by weight, insulation by volume, and then combine those unlike figures into one diversion percentage. Weight can work, volume can work. Mixing the two inside one calculation does not produce a valid comparison. The approved company pathway shifts much of the sorting and recovery operation to a waste management company accepted by the enforcing agency. The word approved matters, and the word verifiable matters. A familiar hauler is not automatically the approved proof source. The project file needs the documentation accepted by the local agency, including the recovery information required for that pathway. The waste stream reduction alternative works differently. Instead of proving a diversion percentage, the project stays under a maximum amount of disposed waste per square foot. The report gives a limit of 2 pounds per square foot for non-residential new construction and high-rise residential projects of 4 stories or more, and 3.4 pounds per square foot for low-rise residential projects of 3 stories or less. Consider a hypothetical non-residential new building with 20,000 square feet of building area. Under the 2-pound limit described in the report, the maximum disposed waste would be 40,000 pounds. 20,000 multiplied by 2 equals 40,000. That calculation is simple, but the supervisor still needs reliable disposal records. The alternative changes the compliance calculation. It does not eliminate documentation. I would choose the pathway before waste starts moving. Waiting until the end and then asking which collection of receipts happens to look best is poor control. The containers, subcontractor instructions, receiving facilities, and record-keeping method should all match the selected path from the beginning. The paper trail becomes especially important when several companies touch the waste. A framing crew may load scrap. A driver may haul it. A recovery facility may weigh it. An office administrator may assemble the closeout file. If each person assumes somebody else kept the ticket, the final record can have a hole even though the material reached the right place. For a weight-based plan, I would collect legible tickets that connect each load to the project and receiving facility. I would check the material description, date, quantity, and destination while the job is active. I would also reconcile those records against the project log instead of storing a loose stack until final inspection. For a volume-based plan, I would use the accepted volume records consistently. I would not switch units midstream just because one facility ticket arrives in a different format. If the available records do not match the approved method, that is a coordination problem to solve with the enforcing agency while the facts are still recoverable. Self-hauling does not make the record requirement disappear. Under the source-backed self-haul rule, a business that carries its own organic and construction waste keeps records of the amount delivered to recovery facilities, and those records are subject to local inspection. The contractor who bypasses a franchise hauler may take on more of the proof burden, not less. This is where field supervision and estimating connect. The bid needs to account for containers, separation space, labor, hauling, facility charges, and documentation. The site plan needs enough room for the chosen method. The subcontract terms need to say who retains tickets and who reports each load. The closeout process needs a responsible person and a deadline. None of those steps changes the diversion rate, but each one affects whether the contractor can demonstrate compliance. Environmental compliance does not replace physical safety. A perfectly documented load can still be handled unsafely, and a safe drop zone does not prove that the debris was diverted. I keep those obligations connected in the schedule but separate in the compliance file. The third table summarizes the main debris drop controls from California Code of Regulations, Title 8, Section 1736. When waste is dropped to a point outside the exterior walls of a building, an enclosed chute is required unless the drop area is effectively protected by barricades or fences. At a chute opening where employees dump debris by hand, the opening needs a standard guardrail. The chute may control the path of the material, but the worker at the opening still faces a fall exposure. The entry point cannot be treated as safe merely because the chute itself is enclosed. When wheelbarrows or mechanical equipment feed a chute, a securely attached tow board or bumper must arrest the equipment. The minimum dimension given in the report is 6 inches thick and 6 inches high. A loose scrap block sitting near the opening is not the same as a secured stop. An interior floor drop without a chute has a different control. The lower level must be completely enclosed by a barricade at least 42 inches high and positioned at least 6 feet, back from the projected edge of the opening above. The area also needs warning signs under the source material. Most important, for sequencing, nobody removes debris from that lower barricaded area while material is still being handled or dropped from above. Cleanup begins only after the dropping has stopped. The barricade is not permission to place a cleanup worker inside an active impact area. Imagine a crew dropping interior demolition debris through a floor opening. The supervisor builds the correct barricade, but then sends a labor inside it to keep the pile from growing. The immediate problem is not the barricade dimension. The problem is incompatible work happening at the same time. The upper operation and the lower cleanup must be separated in time. The same supervision principle applies at an exterior chute. I would inspect the opening, guardrail, secured bumper when equipment is used, discharge area, and access control before the first load. I would also stop the operation if the controls are removed or defeated during production. A morning inspection does not protect an opening after somebody moves the guardrail at noon. Now consider one hypothetical renovation that pulls the whole lesson together. A contractor begins a covered non-residential alteration with a permit valuation above $200,000. The crew will remove ordinary architectural debris, fluorescent lamps, and some electronic equipment. Space is tight, so the contractor plans to use one approved mixed waste company for the ordinary debris. Before demolition, I would verify the local diversion ordinance and confirm that the company is approved for the selected compliance pathway. I would make sure the construction documents identify the universal waste and that those items have a separate authorized route. I would tell each subcontractor exactly where ordinary debris goes, where universal waste goes, and who turns in each record. Suppose the crew also needs to drop ordinary debris through an interior floor opening. I would establish the lower barricade at the required height and setback, post the warning signs, and schedule upper level dropping separately from lower level cleanup. I would not let the environmental plan distract from the Cal-OSHA controls. During the work, I would review tickets and facility records as they arrive. If a ticket is missing, a material description is wrong, or a load went to an unapproved destination, I would investigate while the driver and facility can still reconstruct the event. At closeout, the file should tell one consistent story. The applicable rule was identified, the waste streams were separated correctly, the chosen pathway was followed, and the supporting records agree. Notice what I did not do in that scenario. I did not assume the state minimum overruled the city. I did not count soil as an offset for building debris. I did not mix weight and volume. I did not treat self-hauling or an approved hauler as permission to stop keeping records. And I did not allow cleanup inside an active debris drop area. For a clean memory connection, I used 3 words: route, record, and restrict. Route each waste stream to the correct destination. Record the quantities and proof under the selected compliance pathway. Restrict access wherever debris is being dropped. The number to anchor is 65% for the state baseline on qualifying non-hazardous construction and demolition waste. Then ask whether a stricter local rule applies. Keep land clearing material and covered universal waste in their separate lanes. Choose one accepted compliance pathway before hauling begins. Use weight or volume consistently. Keep self-haul records. For interior floor drops without a chute, remember a barricade at least 42 inches high, at least 6 feet back, and no cleanup below until dropping above has stopped. There is an audio practice quiz for this specific episode's material. It is audio-based. I read the questions aloud and you answer by tapping. I designed it for people studying while driving, working, or otherwise on the go. Go to the description below this video. You will see a link that says Pass the CSLB. Tap it. It will take you straight there. If anything I covered is unclear, comment below with your question and I will use it to help make these lessons better. Subscribe so I can help you stay on track through every episode until you get your license. I know you are fitting this study time around real work and real responsibilities, and I am rooting for you all the way through.